Well, after years of waiting, we've finally seen actual gameplay of Age of Empires 4. Honestly, I wasn't sure if the day would ever come. But alas, it has, so I'm going to talk a bit about it. Quickly, for those who don't know, Age of Empires 4 was announced 4 years ago back at Gamescom 2017, along with the information that it was being developed by none other than Relic Entertainment, creator of some of the best RTSs of all time, such as Homeworld, Dawn of War, and Company of Heroes. And while their historical catalogue is impressive, unfortunately Relic have not had a great track record over the last decade or so. Company of Heroes 2 is, as I've recently discovered, a great game, but it's marred with monetization and pricing concerns that left a lot of the player base feeling disenfranchised, and as such have stuck with the original. And Dawn of War 3, well, the less said about that, the better. Until I review it, that is. All that is to say that people have rightly been cautious about them taking on what is perhaps the most anticipated RTS release in the last God knows how long, really. Age of Empires is a sacred franchise, one of the grandfathers of real-time strategy, and one of the most long-running and beloved RTS series of all time. So I think I can speak for everyone when I say, don't mess this up. Anyway, into the reveal. So there was an event a couple of days ago where the developers and Microsoft released some key information relating to the factions and of course the visuals. From what we can see so far, there are at least 4 factions and they're designed to be asymmetrical, so more like Age of Mythology than Age of Empires 2. I think that's a great idea, but I do really hope there's more than 4 on release. The historical period was cleared up too. We now know that Age 4 will represent a similar period of time as Age 2 did, and features the same split of ages: Dark, Feudal, Castle, and Imperial. Sounds good to me. Now, instead of rattling through every other little thing at random, let's watch through the actual gameplay reveal video and do it together. Alright, so we get the opening, and the visuals look pretty good, especially here. The one thing I didn't like about this trailer is that they used a lot of what I would call cinematic camera angles, and there wasn't really just clear good looks at the gameplay, but that's I guess to be expected. So we can see we start at the Dark Age. We've got the English versus the Delhi Sultanate, so those are 2 of the 4 factions that have been announced. And we get a pretty good look at what the game's going to look like here. So we've got the UI, and that's probably my biggest, I wouldn't say concern, but I don't really like what they've done with the UI. It feels a bit too modern, just like modern UI. There doesn't seem to have a lot of character. If you look back at Age of Empires 1, 2, and 3, the UIs are quite reminiscent of the time periods they're showing. And whereas this doesn't quite feel that way, so I don't know, we'll see if they end up changing that going forward. I do like how these building animations look, they look quite nice. And yeah, overall the visuals look pretty good. See, we only get a few kind of regular camera angles here, and they're all looking good. The scale looks nice, which is something I'm always quite fond of in RTSs. And we get a brief look at combat. I would say these animations are slightly unfinished, they look a little bit janky, but you know, that's what it is. So now we have some more combat, and again the UI at the bottom left and the map at the bottom right, those little forces under attack things, I just don't really like them. They just don't have a lot of character. Feels a bit bland. So I think we're about to move into the Feudal Age now. And I do like these building designs too. They kind of remind me a little bit of Age of Empires 2, but you know, upgraded for 2021, which is good. Yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job. So Mongols versus Chinese, so these are the other 2 factions that have been announced for the feudal, and we're in the feudal age, obviously. One cool thing about the Mongols that they show here is that pretty much the whole base seems to be transportable, so they can all pack up, here we go, and move around. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if that is going to be, like, how much of an important mechanic that'll be. Seems a bit cumbersome to pack up and move every time you want to go somewhere. But I guess the ability to do that is cool. And we also saw a look at a different resource. It's called Ozo. So that looks interesting as well. The unit's looking pretty good. UI again, bottom left, not really liking that. Another thing we can see though is that it's the same resources that we're used to, so food, wood, stone, and gold. That looks interesting. I do like the fog effects. Now you don't actually see them in these top angles, but when they go to the lower angle, you can kind of see the fog in the distance. And I would kind of like to see that as an actual fog of war, in some maps at least, but I don't know, we'll see if they can implement that. Poor guy, there he goes. So now we're about to move into the Castle Age. So you can see we move up here and we go back to the English and the Delhi Sultanate again. So yeah, here's that fog I was talking about. It looks more like a weather effect, but it would be pretty cool to have an actual fog of war. Elephants look pretty sick. We've got siege equipment, and then the gate actually comes down with like a 3D physics kind of collapsible building, which feels very Age of Empires 2 definitive to me, or Stronghold perhaps. So you can see there's some kind of siege warfare. Obviously you would never be able to put units on castle walls in previous Age of Empires, unless you can in 3. I haven't played it, to be honest, but this feels very Stronghold-y, to be perfectly honest. Like, if you told me this was a new Stronghold game, I'd kind of believe it, you know? You've got guys on walls, you've got gatehouses, castles. Like, this feels very much like a Stronghold video, which is interesting, if nothing else. Alright, time for the Imperial Age, so the final age. Well, presumably, unless they add some sort of secret age at the end. Again, it feels a bit Stronghold Warlords-y, settings-wise. Not sure they should zoom in that far very often. They do look a little janky, kind of like Stronghold Warlords, but you know, obviously this has the backing of Microsoft, so you expect a much bigger budget from this kind of production. This is what I mean with the camera angles. Like, these are a lot of angles you're not going to actually have in gameplay, so I think it's a little... I mean, it is a trailer, it's not a gameplay video, but it feels a little disingenuous to call this just a full gameplay video. Obviously they're always staged, but you know, all the camera angles just really could be any trailer, and then they've just kind of thrown a UI on top of it, so I would have preferred to just see straight gameplay. That's fine. So we have a pitched battle that will, of course, never happen this way in an actual game, because why would you ever just wait for the enemy to charge you and just set up like that? But yeah, it looks pretty good, and the infantry and like cavalry and all the unit designs look pretty recognizable, which has always been a strong suit of Age of Empires I've found. I mean, yeah, the special effects look fine. We get the trebuchets, again, like those animations with like the golden kind of holograms of what would actually be happening, which is quite cool. And we have a collapsing thing there. And this is where I really like the visuals, when they just get rid of the UI and just show it for what it is. I think it looks really great. It looks like one of those like YouTube thumbnails where it has like top 10 games like Age of Empires, and the thumbnail was some game that does not exist, but it looks just like a really modern Age of Empires. That's kind of what these last graphics look like. So anyway, that's the trailer. Let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear, because all the feedback I've read seems to be pretty positive, and people are quite positive on the reveal. There's really not a lot of gameplay to be seen. There's not anything known about the faction trees, really. You can learn a little bit from the Age of Empires Village website, which I'd recommend you go and check out. But apart from that, we don't know too much about it, so we'll just have to see what happens. I do like the visuals. It seems to stay true to previous entries, which is nice, but yeah, like I said, there is not really enough information to judge what the game is like. All I know is that it exists, and I mean, that's more than I would say about Age of Empires 4 or 5 years ago. I never really thought we'd get an actual sequel. As for concerns right now, again, it's hard to say. Anything could be a concern because there's just not enough known about it, but I do hope there is more than 4 factions. Relic has always kind of done a few factions. They've never had too many games that have a ton of different factions. You know, Company of Heroes is a handful. The original Dawn of War had a few, but Relic have never done, as far as I know, a massive amount of factions. I'd like to see more. I wouldn't mind a system like Age of Mythology, where there's a few limited factions, but then they can be modified by lords or you know, gods in that game. So we'll see what they do. And I am interested to see how they can implement interesting campaigns, because I have always liked Relic campaigns in particular, with like things like Impossible Creatures and Dawn of War. I thought were really good, so I hope they can do good campaigns for Age of Empires 4. And the asymmetrical design looks interesting as well. That's also something Relic's done quite a bit with like Company of Heroes, again in Dawn of War, so we'll have to see if they play to their strengths here. So yeah, but we'll have to wait until we get it in our hands. I'm hoping to get insider access, and you might be so lucky too if you're an Age of Empires insider. So thanks very much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Age of Empires 4 and what you think of it, so do leave a comment down below if you've got some. And lastly, if you like what I do here, consider supporting me on YouTube memberships or Patreon, just like these lovely folk here. And if you want to follow me for updates on the channel and future videos, then you can do so on Twitter. Thanks again, and you can look out for my Age of Empires 4 full review when it comes out later this year. So thanks very much, and I'll see you all next time.